Well, hey guys, welcome to the very first Lock Jimmy. I am Jimmy, so I will be the one talking and teaching and about locks. So that's how we'll start. Let's start with this fine fellow right here. This is a Schlage. See if we can focus. There, almost. This is a Schlage keyway. As you can see right here, Schlage has this very iconic shape right there. We'll get into the specifics of keys and the entirety of the locks. So let's start with the lock itself, because to pick a lock properly, we must know what we're up against. Most of them are relatively the same. There'll be some variances between manufacturers, but honestly, they're all at the core fairly the same. Anyway, let's start with the top. Right here up top is this is the cap. This keeps the springs from flying out all over the place. You may can see, maybe not, right here. And there's the springs. We'll get into it anyway. Springs, under the springs are the drivers, or top pins. Under the top pins are the bottom pins, which are also called the key pins. The outer part right here is the body. This is the core, the keyway, and the face. And we have a C-clip holding it together. We're going to, let's take it apart, shall we? All right. There are specific tools for this, but you know, you can use rudimentary, just grab what you can, try not to damage it so you could put it back together. All right, so we're just gonna pop the top off of it if I can. Okay, trying not to stab myself. All right, oop, there went some. Right here's the cap. And the springs. Let me set that down. These springs right here, they put pressure down so the lock can be used upside down or right side up. And we'll get into the specifics of, they all have a purpose and can be modified for different purposes. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, there's the springs. This is a 5-pin chamber, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in there, if you could see, are the drivers. Let's dump out each one. Starting right here from the face, the first channel right here is number 1. Okay. The driver that they have included here, if I can focus, come on. That's a T-pin. That's a pretty good security pin. And right here's your key pin. That's just a standard. Number 2. Oops, got number 3 on accident also. All right, number 2 is also a T-pin and a standard. I guess you can hear my daughter in the background. Number 3 is also a T-pin, right there, and a standard. Number 4. Wants to fight me. Number 4 is a standard key pin and another T-pin. There's cool tricks with T-pins that you can do. Number 5 came out. It's also a standard key pin and a T-pin. All right. Now, with everything out of the inside, the core turns freely because, well, there's nothing to restrict it. So let me grab. Lots of people in the industry have different names. I've always called this a pickle fork. On this end here, you could take C-clips and E-clips off just by grabbing the bottom and pushing it up. This has applications in multiple styles of locks. Right now, watch. Just kind of grab the bottom. You can see right here. Grab the bottom of the C-clip and pry and push. And of course it isn't going to do it for me since I'm filming. Sorry about that. I'm trying to keep the time down, but they can fight you. You can push that up, and when it comes up, you just grab the other end or your straight pick, and that comes right off, and the core slides right out, separating them in two. All right, here, and each individual chamber, this one is stock. You can do all kinds of things with different styles of pins to the core to make it even harder to pick. And we'll get into these little extra milling holes a little bit later. Basically, you can turn these around backward. You see how that fits right in there? If you don't have the key and master pins, you can cause a calamity if you think somebody's trying to pick your lock. It's called a lock trap. Anyway, the way that the pins work, let's zoom in a little bit. Sorry for everything shaking. I promise we'll get better as we go along. To be more prepared anyway. With the key, sorry. With the key, you have the shoulder, tip, and the entire part right here is the blade. All these little ripples and indentions and peaks and valleys, those are called the bitting, B-I-T-T-I-N-G, bitting. All right, that is going to be the variance between the pin. See how this one is much longer than this one, and they come in every length, shape, and color. And the way that they work is right here. Always point down. The arrow points down. That's a good way to remember when you're putting them together. Each pin is going to line up with each indention of the bitting. Now, if you notice, these are not the proper pins for this key. I don't have the key for this one, but that's the whole point. You learn to pick without the key. I mean, why will they call a locksmith out if they have the key? So that's how that works. And on top, the way this lock was put together, the T-pins, or the driver pins, were situated down this way versus the small end pointing down like that. This is to cause pickers to have issues with picking because there's a shear line, an imaginary line between the top and the bottom. That's called the shear line. When the shear line lines up with the proper key and proper technique of picking, you have an open lock. And the springs, the springs will push down. That way the lock can be, some people will install locks upside down, which it really doesn't matter, but in the field, it looks good when all of your locks are uniform with your top of the keyway and bottom of the keyway. Not like this, like this. That way your springs are pushing down. Well, Let's assemble it, shall we? That way we know how to put it back together. Okay. There's different ways to do it. You can put it back together and slide it that way. But let's do it this way. You're going to take your core and a pin. Let's put it in chamber 1. Remember, arrow, there's the point. It always points the direction it's going in. Arrow down. You just put one at a time. For real, this is how it always goes. And if you notice, I'm completely putting it in backward. All of you other locksmiths out there who know what you're doing and aren't learning, say, hey, he's starting from the tip and working backward. Well, like I said, I don't have the key for this, so it doesn't really matter. This was just for show. Done with the key. Okay. Now, if we would have picked this lock and did not take the cap off the top, we would have used a plug follower. The plug follower, and I'll just put the plug back in. It's literally what it sounds like. It follows the plug. When you push through, this keeps all of your springs and top pins from coming down. That way, when you're repairing or rekeying in the field, you don't have to do the upstairs portion. Unless, you just want to completely rebuild it, or it's got problems, or you had to blow it, just like we did. This process right here, where you remove the cap and gut it completely, is called blowing the lock. I know. So we put it together. Most people will start by putting it in at a 90. You see how the body is sideways. Right here is your bobble. That's what the very top where the drivers live is called the bobble. Now if you hold it straight, and you'll turn this to the side, either way, we turn it to a 90. That keeps any interference. Since we have T-pins, let's put them back together the way they were. We're going to put this, you have the big and the little. We're going to put the big end down in each chamber. All right, the next step is the springs. Maybe I should have done this with a little bit less coffee today. And the springs, I imagine the reason they put these in upside down is, one, to kind of make the picking a little bit harder and to not force you into a trap. And also, the springs fit perfectly over the small part of the driver pin. Now the cap, this is not a typical Schlage. This is probably a spin-off, kind of like Titan is a spin-off of Kwikset and Defiant. Anyway, this is kind of a Schlage with Kwikset elements, because Schlage has a fixed cap. Now you'll set the cap on top. Set the cap on top, and if I can keep them from flying away, all you do is compress them down and push down until it snaps. Let up easy, and you'll notice it doesn't let go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get it off frame. So now you turn your core till it locks. Kind of just going in reverse process. Put your C clip back on. It's called a C clip because it looks like the letter C. There's also E clips, and some of them, I've seen them actually put together with just a shot of hot glue. So beware of what you're buying and what you're selling. Know your product, is guess what I'm getting at. So there you go. The lock is ready to be picked, and lock picking will be the next segment.